Which brings us to my subwoofer. It's a Paradigm. I don't even, it's not important enough for me to know what the model name on the thing is. A guy that I know was moving and he offered to sell me this for $15. And I had previously, he let me borrow, he's like, hey, you should try a subwoofer in your system and see what you think. So he let me borrow this and I loved it. And so when he said, I'll sell it to you for $15, it seemed like kind of a stupid thing to say no. And so I said yes. I'm definitely of the belief that a subwoofer will make any system sound better. And it's not just for what you think the obvious things are going to be. Like, of course, it's filling in the bottom end that your, left and right channels can't do on their own. But it has this weird magical way of filling in more than that. And it makes your system sound bigger. It makes your system sound more dynamic, more extended, even in the top, not just the bottom. Which is weird. I mean, it's, subwoofers just like regular speakers. It takes some work to get it set up and find the right place where you're not hitting peaks and nulls and having certain bass notes suck out. It does take some work to get it set up right. But when you get it set up right and you find the right place in the room to put it, or ideally two, I agree with that too. Like if you can finagle two, that's even better. But at least one, it just makes your whole system sound better, and from top to bottom, not just the bottom. It's weird. Anyway, this little cheapy Paradigm that I have, I know there's way better subwoofers out there. I'd love to have a Rel. I'd love to have a Ferrari. I'd love to have a lot of stuff, but for the time being, for the $15 that I spent on this subwoofer, once you have it, it's like something you can't imagine not having in your system. The one thing it's a 10-inch driver, I believe. The one thing I don't like about it is it only has a single RCA input. And so if I try to bridge left and right into mono into it, and if someone in the comment section can explain this to me, I would greatly appreciate it. It makes left and right stereo channels mono back to the preamp. And I've tried it with numerous different preamps, and no matter what I do, it does that. So if I take left and right out from my preamp and have a Y splitter into a single cable, basically merging left and right into mono just to the subwoofer, it makes the left and right stereo speakers mono as well. And when the guy I know let me borrow this subwoofer initially, that's what I was doing, and I was so enamored with what it did to my system, I didn't even care. I mean, I listened to a lot of jazz, and so especially stuff from the 50s and 60s, I don't care if it's in mono, pretty much sounds better in mono. A lot of that's how it was recorded, especially the stuff in the 50s. So I'm running it. Old AudioQuest cables that I've had for 15 plus years, out of the banana plug portion of the speaker jacks on the back of my AMC into the speaker level inputs on the back of the subwoofer. And some people will tell you that that's the best way to do it. That is the best way to hook up your subwoofer, is running it from your amplifier speaker outputs to the speaker inputs on the subwoofer, because then they say you get whatever characteristics your amplifier is imparting on the system as a whole, so it's matching with the speakers. I guess I believe that in theory. I don't know if I've heard that really be true. I think running it off of the RCA outputs off of a preamp would be better. But again, that's just in theory. But when I ran it with the Y splitter and it went to mono, I thought the bass was almost better that way. But there could be a gazillion and one reasons why that is. It could be the cables, it could be a lot of things. But a lot of people say that that's the best way to do it. Anyway, I'm a huge advocate for subwoofers in a system. And again, it's not just to have earth-shaking blah, blah, blah bass, all that. That's not it. It just fills it out, and you don't realize what you're really missing until it's there. And to me, it also suggests that higher register instruments and frequencies and things in recordings has more low-level information in it than we think, and it fills out the entire
audio picture as a result. So if you don't have a subwoofer, look into it. Like if you sit down and do nothing but listen to music and you take the time to set things up properly, you're not going to be disappointed. And you can get one. Well, if you're like me, you can know someone that's going to sell you one for $15. But even if not, like, you can experiment by finding them used on the internet for a pittance, and then, sell your soul up the audiophile level, or up the audiophile ladder until your heart's content, or your wallet's empty, either way, or your wife kicks you out of your house. But I think they're definitely worth looking into. Okay, so now we're going to talk about cables. I believe in cables. They make a difference. I think that if you listen, anything makes a difference. Anything. The ambient temperature of the air in the room makes a difference. The humidity makes a difference. It's just whether you care or not, and it's whether you want to pay attention to it. And if you don't care and you don't want to pay attention, that's cool. There's plenty of crap people geek out about around me that I just don't care about or choose not to pay attention to, and that's fine. That's my prerogative. But to say that they don't make a difference to me in dedicating 20 plus years of my life to this stuff, of being obsessed with it, they do make a difference. And anyone who gives it an ounce of effort in listening is gonna hear the difference. You just have to decide if you care or not about that difference, and how much your pocketbook and wallet can support the quest in finding your ideal when it comes to cables. But all of that aside, don't tell me they don't make a difference, because they do make a difference. Power cords make a difference. I know, this has been hashed to death. People have talked about this crap for decades, debating it. And you've got the naysayers and you've got the believers. I think anyone who calls himself an audiophile will say that cables do make a difference. Now, short of talking about the cables that I am currently using, I think it's safe to say that now that you've seen my whole system, I don't have a ton of money tied up in this. This is a very modest system. I strive for things to be musical and musically satisfying. I don't believe you have to sell the farm to make that happen. Would I like bigger Magnapans? Sure. Would I like a bigger amplifier and a rel? Of course I would. But I think that what I've put together is very musical and satisfying, and I haven't had to sell my soul to the devil to make it happen. And it's the same with the cables. I guess my point is that I do take this stuff very seriously. I listen very intently. I listen critically, and I will say I'm here to tell you, my friends, that cables make a difference. So I'm not gonna geek out with all the exact model names, because I can't remember them, and it's not important enough to me to remember all of them. But here we go with cables. Like I said previously, my Riga RB250 tone arm has been rewired with an Incognito tone arm cable, which definitely made a difference over the stock really crappy cable that was in this tone arm. And then from my shit Phonostage, I've got a transparent cable going up to my Saga preamp. I've got some homebrew cables that are currently hooked up to my Modi 2 that I'm not don't currently have hooked up to anything, and there's a this red USB cable from AudioQuest is over here waiting to be plugged into my laptop or whatever when I decide to use it. And then I have another AudioQuest cable, which you can't really see because it's going from, well, it's here. This black USB cable is another AudioQuest cable that goes to the first Modi here. And yes, believe it or not, even USB cables make a difference. I know I didn't want to believe it, but I knew it was going to make a difference. And when I got into this whole computer audio thing, I started experimenting with USB cables, and they make a difference. So I've got the this black AudioQuest USB going here to the Modi, and then from there I've got for my 30th birthday, which was 14 years ago, these. There was I don't know, they might even still be around, a company that had a lot of stuff loosely based out of the town that I'm from, had some stuff manufactured here called Star Sound. They were probably best known for their equipment racks. That back in the day, you saw a lot of them at audio shows. Anyway, a buddy of mine who is a machinist did a lot of work for them, and one of the guys who designed these cables gave him these cables, and he gave them to me for my 30th birthday. They are the hardest thing. They are the most unflexible things in the world, but with certain components, they sound incredible. They have Van Den Hall, the RCA plugs on them are Van Den Hall. I don't know anything about the technology. I just know that they can, in the right application, sound great. And in this application, they sound great. And so I'm going to keep them there. So from the preamp to the amplifier, I have Audience AU24 interconnect. I have a love-hate relationship with these cables. Again, like all things in audio, with certain applications, they sound great. There, as opposed to what you typically know from audiophile grade cables that look and have the flexibility of a fire hydrant hose. These are the opposite. They're really, really skinny, but they're also kind of fragile. And I've already got one interconnect that I keep meaning to send back to them, another AU24 interconnect that something broke or shorted out somewhere. All I know is there's a break in the signal and it doesn't work. And those cables, they ain't cheap. I mean, they're expensive cables. But anyway, I think that those cables sound good. They sound musical. They seem to sound better and lend themselves more to like low powered applications. So running it from my preamp to the amplifier would make sense. But when like with their speaker cables, they seem to work better like from like low powered tube amps. Anytime I've tried to use them like on beefier solid state amps, they just don't work as well. So AU24 over to the AMC 2100, and then speaker cables are transparent. They're the Wave 100s. I don't even know if they make these anymore. Frankly, it doesn't matter to me. I've had these cables for, again, probably 10 or 15 years, and I like them. I like them enough that I'm not willing to just start experimenting with a bunch of other ones to convince myself I need something else. I think that transparent cables are musical. I think they've gotten a lot of hate over the years because it does not take long as you crawl up their model lines that they get ridiculously expensive, and they all have these little boxes that the cable runs through, which begs the question of like, what's in that box? Like, what is that doing to the sound? I think a lot of that's suave marketing on their part, but I will say that I will switch these speaker cables out and put something else in, and I'm dissatisfied, and I just put them back and everything is right again. I mean, the devil's in the details. That's, if you're into high-end audio, if you're not into details, I don't know, then that's what it's about. After you get to a certain point, it's like fine tuning a fine-tuned machine, and that's what cables are all about, to me anyway. They take something that sounds good and they make it sound even better, or make it sound even more the way that it should sound, I guess I should say. They shouldn't be adding anything to it. Anyway, when it comes to transparent, I've just always found that and all the stuff I have of theirs is incredibly entry level. Like it's again, like to the average person, what these cables cost, they would drop their jaw at, but to anyone who's into audiophile, they would think I've got a steal on these, just because they're not that expensive. So this segment of the Hi-Fi Viewer video number 3 brought to you by Transparent Cable. Other than that, the only other thing I'd point out is this cable right here is another AudioQuest cable, and I will say the model name since it says it right there. It's a Sydney. It just goes to a phone plug. I have that there in the rare event that, I guess sometimes I plug in my phone, but not very often. More so than that, I have another laptop that I'll use if and when I want to listen to something on a streaming service, and then I use AudioQuest Dragonfly, which then plugs into that, which is why I've got that plugged in over there. So I think, again, I've rambled on enough for this video, and I'll wrap it up there, and I need to go to bed. Yeah, I think in the next episode, we'll either go to somebody else's house and check out their system, and I'll ramble on about that, or maybe we'll look at another one of my systems. So until then,